Yes, and we've reached the end of the show. We've had some fun today. Sean Payton is the biggest D-bag in history. He's referring to grown men as street animals and mutts who eat out of trash cans and prostitute themselves for anything when referring to his QB room in the NFL. Also, in the association, we talked about the dumbass Cleveland Cavaliers and how they fired a guy who's improved the record of the basketball team every year he's been there, and he's still owed $10 million on 2 years of his contract. So have at that. Also, we was talking about Scotty Scheffler and the BS in golf, which is a monumentous thing because that's my first and last time ever even covering golf because I just don't give a shit. So back to the National Football League, and we talk about Psycho Roger Goodell. Now he's talking about 18 regular season games, as if we're not already just giving football so much you just want to puke. Football's on all the time in the NFL. You have all day Sunday, you have Monday, you have Thursday, and given what time of the year, football is even on Saturday. Oh my God. So what is his ingenious thought? Now this comes from CBS Sports and Jory Epstein, talented writer. She says it's been 3 years since the NFL adapted to the 17-game format. Well, why stop at 17 when you can have, wait for it, 18? Bum, 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 bum. Oh my God, more NFL. See, during the NFL draft weekend, he put in the air cutting down preseason games from 3 games to 2 games out of nowhere, because that wasn't even asked to him in the draft. You got kids coming up and people shaking in his hand, and he even had back surgery, and people was like hugging him and dapping him up and everything. And that was odd to me because I was just like, why would he say that? Why would he just put that in a conversation? And Jory points out later on in the piece is that Goodell says, I'm not a fan of preseason. We don't need 3 preseason games. I'd take a regular season game over a preseason game any day. That's quality, right? Look, let's stop the bullshit, Goodell. He works for the owners. He wouldn't say that publicly if they didn't, number one, already talk about this behind closed doors. Number 2, give him permission. That's how that works. It's not quality, at least from my perspective, because you get to see the potential guys work for a job and new pieces get real-time gelling experience by the 3rd game. To shorten that, that's at your own peril. Because you don't know how guys line up, who's picking up the scheme right away. I'm back in favor of shortening the season myself. Because you even have people who don't even play preseason. And you are a starter, and if you're a starter and you're on the roster, fine, no harm, no foul. But those guys, they don't start playing a full quarter until the 3rd game of the preseason. That first game, they may play for a series. The second game, they may play for maybe 2 or 3 possessions. But by the 3rd game, these guys are playing a quarter or 2. And then the 4th game, they kind of ease them into it. And then before you know it, you're in the season and you're off and running. But if you're talking about cutting that kind of time down, for some of these guys skipping training camp, you're getting ready to unleash a bevy of injuries on guys. And I don't think you care because it's quality, right? It's quality. I don't really care for the preseason. That's because you're not getting hit, asshole. That's because you're not weightlifting. That's because you're not out here trying to make a team, worried about how you're going to go ahead and support yourself or how you're going to pay this agent who's trying to take 35% of your money. So, of course, you don't mind preseason. You don't really like preseason because it didn't cost you anything. But for the guys who is out there working and trying to make a living, yeah, I care because I'm going to miss my family more. That's one more game I'm going to be away from my children. That's one more game that I'm not going to be able to see my wife. That's one more game we're on the road playing in another country that doesn't even support football and could care less about it. And those tickets over there are way cheaper than the NFL tickets in the States. Don't get me started on that crap. Oh my goodness. But then he proceeds to baffle them with bullshit when he says, and I quote, "I wasn't floating something that we're actively talking about now." Why would you even say that? Again, you say this because that's what you're actively doing. I wasn't floating something that we've actually thinking about, Goddell said. It is something that we think about in the long-term context. Come on, man. Nobody just blurts out a plan that they haven't thought about and say, well, you know what? Long term, I'm thinking about. No, you didn't say long term anything. You said that you don't care for the preseason and you really don't need 3 preseason games. You didn't say that long term. These people, they don't know. They just talk. They just talk. They don't even seem like they understand reading and comprehension. So you don't give that kind of detail if you haven't already drawn up plans to make it a reality. Exactly. Because as I laid out for you, he was sitting there talking about you taking away this game, you're adding this game, and it's all about quality. And now and I think in some of the piece that they were talking about how to format it with the games, extra bye weeks. Again, he went into deep detail about that. But then he fell back on his horses and was like, oh, we haven't, actively said anything. Yeah, yes, you have. Yes, you have. It's no different than LeBron James saying, holding a press conference, telling people, hey, look, I'm not involved in a coaching search. You're absolutely involved in the coaching search. This is what you're actively doing, and you said as much. That wasn't even the question. The question is draft night. Hey, what guy do you think is going to make an impact? Well, I don't think that we need 3 preseason games. What? Yeah, I'd rather hack it down to 2 preseason games. That wasn't the question. That was the question, Roger, psycho. What was the question again? Oh my goodness. That's a word salad. And that came from the league meeting in Nashville. I think Jordy echoed some of my thoughts when she writes health and safety concerns dictate the loudest criticisms towards an 18-game schedule, particularly if the expansion does not accompany another bye. The league must collectively bargain scheduling changes with the players' union and other growth areas, such as the league's growing international slate. Financial concerns appear to routinely trump health and safety considerations. So, financial concerns. Yay! This is where the NFL makes money on the backs of these guys. Now, don't get me wrong, they pay them handsomely. So I'm not going to go ahead and begrudge you that these guys are pleading for poverty and they're on this. But what I'm sitting here saying is that if you're able to get out of football with all of your faculties, then take it. Some guys don't make it out or don't come out on the other side of that mountain. I mean, hell, I think Peyton Manning had his spine fused. You had Phil Simms Jr., who ruptured his spleen. I mean, this is a dangerous sport at the end of the day. And if you're in the camp of, I don't really care for preseason either, that's because you're not getting hit. You had Andrew Luck, a guy who I detest on all levels, who I told people he was overrated. He wasn't built for this. He only had one good year. Then he became the mystery man. And then in preseason, before the season started, 3 years into his career, hey, look, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm officially retiring. That's it. That's it. You have to allow the human body time to recover. 17 games is enough. 17 games is enough. The only other thing on more than football is wrestling. And Dick Wolf shows. God, Dick Wolf is on every night. Law and Orders, the Law and Order SVU, that whole franchise, now the FBI's. He is on TV more than wrestling. He is on TV more than wrestling at least 2 to 3 times a week. Wrestling is on 2 to 3 times a week. And now you're trying, and in certain, like I said, you go to football, wrestling, Dick Wolf shows. Masked Singer. But yeah, man, I mean, Roger Goodell's not out there taking hits. And you see why the ownership class wants more games, but the workers would suffer immensely. And it would come down to profits over players. Exactly. The one thing that is odd to me is American football in other countries that don't give a shit about it. It's not a global game, and it never will be at the level of a soccer or NBA. But Rat-Faced Goddell and the NFL have beefed up that 5 games to 9 games. Why? I can't tell you on one hand. I've ever maybe seen 2 games. I don't give a shit if you're playing in Bangladesh, or you're playing in London, or you're playing in these soccer stadiums. We know you're not charging these people $70 for 1 seat, 2 seat. Then you're giving them Cokes at $8 for a Coke, a medium Coke. You're not doing that to those people. You're doing that only to your American fan base. People in Scotland don't give a shit about the Cleveland Browns versus the damn New England Patriots. They don't care. Nobody in Brazil has ever wanted to check out, and correct me if I'm wrong, they never wanted to check out the San Francisco 49ers versus the Seattle Seahawks in South America. They just don't care. And if the NFL was on at the same time you had a national soccer game going on, their version of football, they're going there. And they don't care if you gave them free tickets and free shirts and free food. They don't want to see the shit. They don't understand the shit. They could care less. However, it's profits over players. So, had a good time today. That is the show, and we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back next week with some good content. This is Big Vern and